In 1984, Jim Kolbe became the first Republican to represent Southern Arizona in the House of Representatives. He won re-election 10 times, and in 2005 he announced he would not seek a 12th term. He now spends his days as a fellow at the German Marshall Fund think tank and also teaches at the University of Arizona. President Barack Obama appointed Kolbe to the Advisory Committee for Trade Policy and Negotiations in September of this year, and I welcome you.
Kim, it's nice to be with you.
Nice to be with you. And trade has been one of your longtime interests.
It has been, since I first went to Congress.
Yeah, and let's talk about what's in our own backyard, so to speak, the Canamex corridor. I mean, what is that? What's the promise that that holds?
Well, Canamex is an outgrowth of the passage of NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. And with NAFTA, we were linking three countries, United States, Canada, and Mexico. We already had a trade agreement with Canada, and we have a lot of transportation between those two countries. But there's really nothing, if you stop and think about it, that goes from Canada to Mexico. Most of our transportation corridors go across the country, horizontally across the United States. So the idea of NAFTA was an afterthought when we enacted it, but was to create certain corridors that would link Canada and Mexico. The Canamex corridor, Canada, Arizona, Mexico, is designed to link western Mexico through Arizona, Utah, Idaho, Montana to the province of Alberta, where of course there's a huge amount of energy and other resources there. So it's a Rocky Mountain corridor, if you will, that's a north-south corridor.
And based on the progress, we've seen some progress in improving this corridor. What kind of benefits do you see, particularly for people in Arizona, which is whom we are concerned?
Well, there are benefits. Of course, the really big, spectacular thing that we've had as a result of that is the new bridge over the Colorado River at the Hoover Dam. That's now opened, and the bypass, and eventually we will have a complete freeway from Phoenix to Las Vegas. Those are the two largest cities in the United States that are not linked by an interstate freeway. But the other thing that we've seen that really benefits Arizona as well is the improvement and expansion of our border crossing facilities at Nogales and San Luis, and in the works now is one at Douglas as well. There's an increasing amount of trade, particularly in produce and other commodities like that, maquilas that are producing electronic products and things that go into automobiles and so forth, coming across the border every day. And we have huge backups at the border. And so the Mariposa expansion will help to alleviate that and make it easier for trade to come across into the United States and through Arizona, and we benefit from that.
Well, that also begs the question, recently we've seen a lot of focus on security, and
Yes.
how does that play into this entire trade
Security
corridor?
is a problem. There's no question about it. There's no sense trying to cover it up or paint it over. The security, the problem, the battles between the cartels and the government in Mexico, in northern part of Mexico, is having a serious impact on the economy of northern Mexico and also on the U.S. You don't see tourists from the United States going across the border to shop. If you go to Nogales, all those curio shops are gone. They're boarded up. And similarly, it takes so long now for people to get across the border into the United States. The number of people coming to Walmart in Nogales or up to Tucson to shop at the Tucson Mall or Park Mall is significantly reduced. So it is having its impact. There's no question about it.
Well, if you were in charge, I mean, if you were head of Homeland Security, what would you do?
Well, if I were in charge of Homeland Security, I think one of the things I would do is make sure that my people are keeping a balance. Yes, security is very important. We want to make sure that drugs are not coming in. We want to make sure that terrorists are not getting through the border. But the other part of Homeland Security is to facilitate the passage of both people and goods across the border. And I think sometimes, because politicians want to focus on the security side of it, they forget about the other part. So I would keep my eye on that part of it.
Well, and what is this new appointment that Obama gave you just in September? What does that mean? How is that going to make an impact on trade?
Well, what we hope to do with this, or what this group, this advisory group is designed to do, is to give outside input to the U.S. trade representatives and to the administration on specific negotiations. When there's a negotiation with Korea, as they're trying to revise that agreement, or if the Doha, the current round, multilateral rounds, or with other agreements, they will give us information. They will ask for our advice. We will respond to things that they are negotiating and say, you know, we all really ought to focus on this. We think this is the wrong direction, the right direction to go. So it's an advisory group.
And what is your take on the president's recent trip to India, amongst other countries, with his efforts to increase that trade agreement and encourage job growth in our own country. And how does that work out? How do you?
Well, the president's really reaffirmed the commitment that we have to the India relationship. It's a very big relationship. It's a growing one. There is a tremendous amount of opportunity for trade. In many ways, I think in the United States, we overlook India in favor of China. But I think the Indian market is just big, and it's also a lot more open. It's a lot freer. So I think there's a lot more opportunities for us in India than we have perhaps in China. So I think it's very big. That part of his trip was very successful. He wasn't as successful in Seoul, of course, at the G20 meeting, and we completely flubbed the Korea agreement, trying to reach that agreement before the end of the G20 meeting.
Should we be concerned about the trade imbalance, and why?
Well, we should be concerned about the trade imbalance overall, but we shouldn't be concerned about trade imbalances with particular countries. But the trade imbalance is a reflection of our economy as a whole. Americans like to consume, we like to buy things from other countries, and we like to have them finance it by loaning us the money. So we keep running up these huge deficits, and we keep turning around, and they keep loaning us the money. We keep buying things from China and other countries, and they loan us the money to do so. We should be concerned about that because the debt of the United States is growing very dramatically. And it's like a merry-go-round. Eventually, it has to stop. We can't go on with this forever. But the trade is really just an aspect of that. It's not the fundamental underlying problem. It's our unwillingness to meet the fiscal responsibilities of being fiscally responsible in this country.
Well, speaking of being unwilling to face fiscal responsibility, you probably have an opinion about earmarks, which always comes up in the Congress and you dealt with this issue then.
I was an appropriator. I was one of those that was guilty of this.
So what are you thinking about the discussion that's occurring now?
I think it's really, for the most part, it's missing the mark entirely. There are certainly earmarks that are reprehensible, that are wasteful. There's no question about that. But let me start with the basic premise. The president's budget that he submits to the Congress every year is one giant earmark. He decides, he says, this is where the money should go, for defense, for education, and so forth. Now, the last time I read the Constitution, it says no money shall be appropriated except as by the Congress of the United States. So we have a constitutional responsibility to do that. And there can be certain things that the president doesn't put in his budget that we can decide to put in the budget. Sometimes that benefits an individual, and it's really out of line. There's no question about it. That's what people really focus on. But let me give you an example of where it has been very advantageous. The Defense Department, the administration for a year fought against having the aerial. I'm trying to think of the word for
piece of equipment.
Yeah, the drones. Excuse me, the drones that we have that fly over Pakistan now and hit the targets there. They opposed that for years. Congress said, no, this is something that we think we need, and we kept putting that in. And those, of course, have become an extraordinarily important part of our defense, national security policy.
So
earmarks are not necessarily bad, is what I'm trying to say. It depends on what they are.
Just briefly, before we go, what are you hoping for your students? What is your goal for your students in the business law class?
Well, my goal would be, my hope, is that they would leave that course with a better understanding of the ins and outs of trade, of how it actually works in Washington, and with a commitment to increasing and improving trade for the United States around the world.
Well, I wish you well.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for being here, and have a nice holiday.
And same to you.